You're live.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a public meeting as required by Section 59 of the Drainage Act, as the contract price for the McCredie Drain exceeds the engineer's construction estimate by 133%. The mayor, does any member of council have any disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Seeing and hearing none. The purpose of this meeting is to review this contract price. Those assessed on the drain will be given an opportunity to express any concerns when the meeting becomes open to the public. So I'm now going to call on Jeff Brooks, who is our Director of Infrastructure and Community Service, to review the process to date and the correspondence that he has received.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the McCredie Drain has passed through the meeting to consider in the quarter revision, and we've read all three readings of the bylaw. So the drain project has been tendered out. As a result, we're here tonight to consider the contract price for the McCredie Drain. The Drainage Act states that if the contract price exceeds 133% of the engineer's estimate in the drainage report, a meeting to consider the contract price is required. Now, the tendered price for the McCredie Drain is substantially higher than the 133% outlined in the Act. That being said, staff have received correspondence from CJDL on behalf of Doug Terry Limited and Progressive Communities, Inc., requesting that the contract move forward, and further that the two would pay any additional costs to municipalities and utilities over the estimated assessments included in the drainage report. They are making this request in order to move this drain project forward without delay so that their development lands in St. Thomas are not held up. So basically what they've offered to do is pay everybody, all the other assessed landowners, municipalities, and utilities additional costs over and above what was perceived in the engineer's report. So, for example, the municipality of Central Ogden, I don't have the exact assessment, but I believe the assessed cost, for example, was $12,000. Central Ogden will only pay the actual cost based on the tendered price, which I believe is somewhere in around $2,000. Regional Water, as another example, their assessed cost, I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but was roughly $60,000. After the project has been tendered, the actual price for Regional Water was about $150,000. So what the two developers are proposing is they would pay the additional costs over and above Regional Water's original assessed estimate of $60,000. So
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was just going to suggest that it's council's will to determine whether or not they would like to move forward with this project based on the tendered price.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to ask our deputy clerk if she's had any correspondence on this item.
Madam Mayor, no correspondence has been received.
Okay. Do any members of council have any questions on this? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to be clear then, could someone just lay out how much the municipality is going to pay, how much DTL and PCI will pay, and get to the $1 million? Is that available handy?
I don't have those calculations handy with me. I can have a quick look at the report to find out what the upset limit of what the municipalities and utilities would pay, but I don't have the exact figures of what PCI and Doug Terry would pay. A lot of it is dependent on the construction. If there are overages in the construction, PCI and Doug Terry will take care of all of those additional costs. And like I said, in the engineer's report does lay out what the estimated assessed costs to all the municipalities and utilities are. Those utilities and municipalities will not pay any more than what was contemplated in that engineer's report.
Councillor Rowe?
Thank you. So just to follow up then, it's just that there's two different numbers that I see in the report. So in the original construction estimate, or in the original estimate, I guess, it was a total of 646.5, of which $111,000 of that said non-construction. So assuming you subtract the non-construction piece, because we're just talking about the construction here, that would mean that Central Elgin's responsibility would be around $535,000. But if I look at the memo, it kind of implies that it's Central Elgin's responsibility is $491,600. So it's just looking to be clear on what Central Elgin's exposure is going to be in this.
So that's the total cost of the construction project. So I believe 535,000 is the total price of the construction project. Most of that money is assessed out to landowners, most of which is Doug Terry Limited and Progressive Communities, Inc. So the municipality is only on the hook for what is shown on the assessment schedule for construction costs, which I believe was, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it was around $12,000. That would be the upset limit that Central Elgin would be on the hook for.
Thank you.
Councillor Fair?
So then it's clear that the difference between that 535,000 and the roughly million, Doug Terry is paying for that, right?
Doug Terry and PCI will
Right.
proportionally that overage between the 1 million and 535,000 will be completely picked up. Yeah.
So the only people who are being, or will have an increase is strictly the Doug Terry Limited and the other company. Yeah. Any other questions from council? If not, we will now open the meeting to questions from the public. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon.
Councillor Kravitz.
I'm sorry, Councillor Kravitz.
Oh, thank you. The question I had is, with the increased cost of this drain, is there going to be any in the future, when there's maintenance for this drain, will there be any extra cost associated at keeping this drain at the $1 million cost as opposed to the $500,000 cost? I don't know if that's going to affect any homeowners in the future or not.
The construction price strictly relates to the assessed cost for construction. So there's no impact on future maintenance costs for any landowners in the future. I believe that's what your question was.
Yeah, so thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Sorry, Councillor Kravitz. So we'll now open the meeting to questions from the public. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you've called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be answered in a sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record. And I see, Mr. Lyle, you have already been led into the meeting. So if you would unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, my name is Darren Lyle from Cyril DeMeyer Consulting Engineers. We are here representing Doug Terry Limited and their Harvest Run subdivision and Performance Communities Inc. or Hey Ho Homes in their Orchard Park Meadows subdivision, otherwise known as the Jim Dunning Farm at Centennial and Southdale. I would just like to reiterate what Jeff said and express our support for this project moving forward. Although it does seem like a large exceedance in the tender value, we did do our, I guess our homework after the tenders closed and did a very detailed kind of vetting of the tender bid that was submitted and believe that really it is kind of a fair and honest representation of what tender pricing is costing today. And that the estimate was prepared over 6 months ago, and any of the COVID has certainly increased the number of or increased construction pricing volatility in today's market. And then kind of to clarify the questions that Councillor Rowe had on the assessment schedule, I did manage to get that open as Jeff was speaking, and Jeff was correct. Central Elgin's assessed cost was $12,000 and change. So to clarify what DTL and PCI's offer is that nobody will incur any additional expenses aside what was already contemplated in the assessment schedule based on the lower price. So basically the $500,000 overage is effectively split 50-50 between DTL and PCI. So they'll each be another $250,000 paid out of their pocket.
Thank you, Mr. Lyle. Is there anyone else waiting, Mr. Perrin?
No other hands up, Your Worship.
Thank you. One last time, if there's anyone who wants to speak, you need to put the raise hand or *9. It looks as if there aren't any. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the McCredie Drain, please email Diane Wilson, dwilson@centralelgin.org, or contact her by phone at the municipal office 519-631-4860, extension 286. Thank you. This meeting is now concluded.